Pedro from A&P-Reacts. I'm here today with the great Scott Ian Lewis of Carnifex to talk about the upcoming record, Graveside Confessions, out September 3rd on Nuclear Blast. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. I was just dropping the van off to get serviced for our upcoming tour right before this.
Yeah, you guys have a busy schedule coming up. And the last time I saw you was at Heavy Montreal. I interrupted your dinner. You were having a burger, and I bother you for a picture. So I'm glad that you took the time for the picture.
I remember that.
I feel really bad that I bother you during your dinner. But I was like, man, if I don't take this opportunity now, I'm going to regret it forever.
The now or never situation. Yeah, that stuff doesn't really bother me that much. I feel like I'm kind of just lucky that people even give a shit to say hi at all. So, that's cool.
So let's get into this record, and let me start off by asking you this. How much has it changed for you, the making of this album, when you go from a 5-piece to a 4-piece?
It was different. We also worked with a lot less people. We didn't work with any guest musicians. We didn't really work with, when we did the records with Jason and Mark, those guys are, they're there at the computer running Pro Tools, giving their opinion, giving their input through the whole process. So this time around, we didn't have that. Sean was at the controls, and he's the main songwriter in the band. So it's like, it was a little bit different in that, like, it was really concentrated vision. It wasn't very, it wasn't diluted by, other people's input. So I think it was just like, it was very focused, and it was just us, you know what I mean?
Did that impact also the creative process behind making this record?
I think so. Yeah. There was, we have like a really great cohesion as a 4-piece. It's just like we're all really want the same thing for the band, for the business, for the music, like all that stuff. So in a weird way, even though we were in a really bad spot with obviously COVID and the shutdowns and all that stuff, it was actually it was probably our best recording experience. So at least there was that.
There's always some silver linings, I guess.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So it was different in that it was just us here in this room, for the whole year. But we actually never had a chance to do anything like that before. So I think we got a great record out of it. So we'll probably do the same thing again for the next record, basically.
That was going to be my next question. Is the experience of this album looks like it was very enjoyable for you guys. So is this something that perhaps you will continue down the road, or are you going to revisit maybe a hybrid of both systems? Is that even a possibility of having a little bit of both worlds?
Yeah, I suppose it is. I mean, as far as like the whole idea of like, everybody getting plane tickets and flying to a studio, and then, you got to Airbnb a house, because most studios don't have any living facilities in them. So you got to figure out how to live wherever this studio is. And studios are like in random areas that don't make sense to anything, because it's just some guy's house, And so I think for us, like, that whole process, not being a part of this, it was great. And I don't think we're not looking forward to that at all. It's extremely expensive. What you end up realizing is that you spend you spend a large portion of your budget on things that don't even end up on the record, where you're staying, how you got there, the food you ate, etc. So this was just, all the money went to the record, all the focus was on the record. And yeah, I don't know, you tell me. I think it's probably one of like the best records, but best might even not be the right word. It's like one of the most real versions of Carnifex out there, I think.
I was going to say to you, I don't know if what I'm going to say is even possible, but does this feel to you like this is the most brutal Carnifex record to date? Because to me, it feels very punchy. There's no like beating around the bush, not that there was a lot of that before, but I felt with this one was a little bit of no frills. It's like, we're going to come at you and we're going to be in your face relentlessly from top to bottom.
Yeah, you're right about that, and that was kind of our mindset going in. You know, we started that right out of the gate with Graveside. As far as, you know, the last couple of records we've been doing like big intros and kind of epic intros that sort of build to something, and those are fun, those are cool. But on this one, we purposely were like, nope, let's just go straight into the ass kicking, and we also kind of, I guess what we lacked in maybe some technicality on this record, we made up for, I think, in aggression and just like intensity. There's like a raw intensity on the album where you can turn it up too loud and it'll hurt your ears. You know what I mean? And I don't know, the themes are darker than they've ever been. I really tried to get in people's heads with the lyrics, and I think the songs are pretty fucking brutal. You know, we really tried to be mean, you know.
I love talking to you about this record because obviously I've heard the album, and everything that you're saying is exactly what I felt when I was listening to it. The first thing that I felt listening to this record is that it felt like it was exploding, not going into my ears, but once it was in my ears, was exploding within my ears. I've listened to a lot of Carnifex records. I've never heard an album that had this sort of like, you know,
Yeah.
inner ear explosion, if you will. How did you guys achieve that? Because I've listened to a lot of albums even this year outside of Carnifex, and I haven't heard an album that has this sort of penetrating explosion effect into my ears. So loud.
Yeah, I would say that we don't know what we're doing, you know, and but that's kind of a good thing, because like let's go back to Dead in My Arms, and you know, you heard the re-recorded songs on there, and like we looked at that record a lot because that record, we had no expectation. There was no, oh man, the record's got to do this good, or you know, whatever. We just wrote music, and then people happened to listen to it after the fact, and so we wanted to bring that back on this record. And just like on that record sounds really fucking intense, but if you take it to any real producer, they're going to tell you the record sounds horrible. And I think there's a middle ground there where you can take a record like World War X, for example. That thing was like, as far as like a producer or a studio engineer goes, that was like that's about as close as you could get to like making everything, the production super clear, doing everything just so meticulously. Whereas on this record, you know, we didn't have Jason here to be like, you know, he's like a savant with all the recording stuff and guitar stuff. So it was like, there was stuff that we didn't know. Maybe we turned the guitars up too loud. There was no one to stop us. So we just did it. And that's what we did on Dead in My Arms. There was no one to say otherwise. So we just did what we thought was cool. And we tried to bring that on this one, find the middle ground. We didn't want to like put out an amateur sounding record, but at the same time, I thought World War X was a little too clean, a little too polished. Like all the rough edges, all that rawness and intensity had been, you know, smoothened out, and it was just perfect, you know.
And I'm glad you mentioned World War X, because there's a couple of things that I took from that album into this album. One of them is the symphonic elements of the sound. They're still there, but I didn't feel like they had the same role, or at least they didn't have the same end result that they did in World War X. Here, they're an element, but they're not necessarily really driving the atmosphere or the experience. Was that kind of the goal, to still keep them there, but not give them as much of a predominance as you perhaps did in the previous album?
I think that ended up happening for another reason. And that main reason was up until recently, as recent as World War X, we were always heavily discouraged from being deathcore or accepting that label, using that label in the press, you know. And even on World War X, the label was real clear, like, you're not deathcore, you're not going to call yourself deathcore, you're modern metal, you're modern death metal, you're past that now. Like, let's all grow up. And okay, it's cool. World War X was really like us trying to get to the next level. Like, how far could you take a deathcore band? Can you get a deathcore band on tour with Slipknot, on tour with Lamb of God? Like, can we get to that level? I haven't seen any deathcore band get there yet. So for us, World War X was like, let's punch the ceiling on this thing, break, you know, the glass ceiling, whatever they call it, and get to that level that other deathcore bands can't get to. And in doing that, I think we sort of, maybe the record, you know, World War X is not as brutal or violent as Graveside. And that was by design. We were really trying to showcase technicality, songwriting, different lyrics, different layers of atmosphere. I tried to switch my lyrics up as far as not so personal and make them, much more, I guess, metal in a weird way. You know what I mean? Try to, as a dystopian world, we got to hack and slash through. Like, it was very much more in line with what you might think a traditional metal record might be. We were getting pushed that way, behind the scenes, but also we were like, man, can we get to that next level? Maybe this is what we need to do. All that shit went away on this one. We didn't have any of those mandates. We just wanted a gnarly fucking record that our fans and us were like, hell yeah. And that was our only goal. We didn't overthink it. We didn't overproduce it, which, if I'm being critical of World War X, it might be a little overproduced.
Another element of World War X was the fact that you guys had 9 songs, 35 minutes. This one goes a little bit over the 1 hour mark. Are you concerned with the length of the record when you look at how compact World War X was, how quick it came and gone, and this one lingers a little bit longer?
Well, World War X being 9 songs is product of our schedule. It was just like we were touring like crazy through 17 and 18, which is when we were, trying to work on that record. And then, the studio experience wasn't the best we had. It wasn't anybody's fault. It was just really long and complicated and expensive because we were having to get people out to Florida. And again, it's that whole nowhere to stay. So we were just sending one person at a time so they could stay actually with Jason. He's a friend of ours and stuff. So we couldn't like send the whole band there. So it was just, it was not ideal writing circumstances. And we were so focused on touring at that time. I think that's why the record's so short. We just didn't have more time to generate more songs we thought were worthy of the record. Where come here to Graveside, it's like we've never had a year to just sit at home. We've never done that before. So yeah, let's fucking write some more songs. Let's make it longer. And I'm not like, I wasn't totally stoked on the 9-song thing. Like I thought we had more or could have done more, but oh well,
It is what it is. Water under the bridge.
Yeah, right. It exists forever now.
There's a track on this album that I think perhaps is going to get little attention, but I think it's crucial in terms of the design of the record, in terms of the fluidity of the album and the overall playability, and that is January Nights. What's your thoughts on that track? Because I really feel like this album without this song is not the same record.
I agree. What's the story on that song? Well, okay, so January Nights, we wrote it in January, no surprise. And if you think back to that time, it was still kind of pretty grim. As we're going through the winter. It was all the numbers were up, and I don't think the vaccine was really getting distributed yet and stuff. So it just kind of was like we weren't getting any updates from our agent as far as like winter tours coming back, so it was kind of a grim time for us. And then Corey was here at the studio tracking, and it was, he's going through some shit. The pandemic kicked all of our asses, but Corey got it the worst. He's going through a lot of tough stuff right now. So he just was working on that song, and they had the working title of Sad Boy because it was just a sad song, and he wrote it, and I really loved it. And we went out on the patio, and it was like nice and cold and crisp and clear, and it was like, man, I just fucking, everything can suck, but January nights, they're just good nights. They're just beautiful nights. And we're like, dude, that's the name. That shit's on the record. Done deal.
I love that. I love that. And you mentioned the re-recorded songs from "Dead in My Arms." When you look back 14 years, how much has the band changed? How much has it evolved? When you look at those early stages and you look at yourselves now.
Well, you see a group of people that were like learning how to be musicians in real time. No one in the band, back then when we did Dead in My Arms, and even right now, no one ever took music lessons. Like we're all self-taught, and obviously this is before YouTube, so it's just like we're just self-taught from listening to other records. And so I think when we went into Dead in My Arms, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just smashing Cannibal Corpse and Bleeding Through together. And it's like that's all it was. We didn't have a deathcore roadmap yet. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just having fun. And so all these years later, like I look at the records we've done, and I could probably pick apart all of them. Of course, that's probably what you do as an artist. But I can also kind of see us growing on all of them too. The Disease and the Poison, we started getting some song structure a little bit better. Hell Chose Me, I think that was us. Like we were touring with Beneath the Massacre and Despised Icon and like all these fucking gnarly bands that we really looked up to, All Shall Perish. And so when we went into Hell Chose Me, we just had like this fire in us to just write a brutal fucking record. And we were just trying to keep up with our friends. And then, Until I Feel Nothing, I mean, that thing was a bomb. That was, we were going like this, and Until I Feel Nothing came out and it didn't sell. I mean, streaming wasn't really a thing yet, but nobody bought it. And our relationship with Victory was just piss poor. So that's not a great record. Like, I think the music has some quality to it. And I'm okay with like the lyrics. I think I did an okay job with the lyrics, but really I feel like we start to come into our own on Die Without Hope, as far as like it's more, I mean, not to say we lacked intention, because we always win in their attention, but it's just, I think it's intention with understanding. And then, so from Die Without Hope to this record, you've really seen that on display. Obviously, Jordan added a lot with his solos, but that's also like not a key. I don't know how to say it. That's not like a foundational aspect of the band. So I think when Jordan left and we were faced with the prospect of replacing him or moving on as a 4-piece, again, it kind of all went back to those early days where we were a 4-piece, and yeah, we're not the most technical band, and Corey's still stepping up to become a soloist. That's okay. We're Carnifex, and we'll find ways to get in your head, with just going on gut, going on heart, and that's really what Graveside is. It's just 4 guys that don't really know much about music, but we got a lot of heart, and we're metalheads.
Is it nice for you to see not only the growth that the band has had over this period of time, or over these 14 years, but also to see that you guys have gone from being fans of other bands and now being a band that up and comers look up to when they're trying to create their own sound? Does that give you a sense of pride?
It probably should, but I don't know that I think on that too often, to be honest with you. Especially lately, like from a business standpoint, we just got annihilated, so it's like right now it's kind of hard for all of us to sort of look around and be like, yeah, we're fucking badasses, you know what I mean? Because we're all like eating shit big time right now. But we put our hearts into the record, and I think once we get past this, get back on the road, people could start paying bills again, then I think it'll be a time where maybe we can sit back and sort of appreciate the success. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but I don't think we've really done that. We were grinding so hard from Die Without Hope through to when Meta X got canceled March 12th. It was like we never really took the time to look back and say, oh, we kind of did something here. So maybe we'll do that after Graveside, and I'm really curious to see how Graveside does. Like, I don't know if it's gonna, like, which way are we going? You know what I mean? I've written both. I've written both, so we'll see.
I think as a fan of the band, this album definitely sounds different from World War X. So if for the fans that perhaps felt a little bit, like you said, more polished sound, and they wanted more of that brutal, in-your-face, relentless Carnifex tracks, this album goes in line with that. So it's a little bit of a departure, at least for me personally. I feel like there's a little bit of a departure from the previous record. It's more in your face, it's more abrasive, for a lack of a better word. I feel like this is a more abrasive album, but I feel like that's who you guys are live, because I've seen you guys live, right. And I think this album captures the essence of the band when you guys perform live? How raw you guys are, how brutal you guys are. It's really well defined in this record.
I agree with you. Yeah. And that was actually kind of one of the reasons we went and back and did the 3 old tracks, was because we always kind of left those alone because we never thought, you know, we could sort of recapture that magic in a weird way. And then once we realized how this record was going to sound as we were going through the process, we were like, not only do we have the time, but if we, this is the chance to do it, because this is where these songs can sound as brutal or maybe even more brutal than the originals. And I don't, you know, if we had done these songs again on World War X, they wouldn't sound like that. They just wouldn't. In fact, I think they kind of sound weak, to be honest with you. So it was the time to do it. And everything you said about the rawness and intensity, it's like, yeah, that's where we're operating from. We're kind of just going on gut. We don't really have the technicality to wow you with our musicianship, but we can take you to dark places and fuck you up, though.
And keep you there. And
yeah, which is fun.
We talked about the sound on this record. I want to talk a little bit about your vocals. Do you have a game plan when you come into an album, or you're kind of driven in terms of what the songs are making you feel like, and what the lyrical content puts forward?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's 2-part. I think looking back at World War X, I was so focused on writing the lyrics, you know, getting all the artwork done, getting all the pre-order packages done, getting all the merch done. You know, we did some insane videos that were a lot of effort and a lot of money, you know, getting the whole Alyssa thing going, getting her out from Canada. Like, I was really spread kind of thin, I guess, honestly. And one thing I noticed about World War X is that I'm like, wow, it's not my best vocal performance, to be honest with you. I think I could have done better. Now, I don't know if that's the circumstance of how we recorded and, you know, how your voice is captured, depending on who you're recording with and how they're doing it, is really going to change kind of how it sounds. And, you know, for example, when we did this new record, like I'm just holding an SM58, like no pop screen, no, tube mic that's sitting in a cradle where I'm 16 inches away from it with a pop screen. Like, you just not gonna capture the same intensity. You just won't. And so, but recording the way we did vocally was like also kind of a big no-no as far as studio producers go, because, well, you're inconsistent. You're moving your hand around. You're here, and then you're here, and then, you know, maybe you're cupping, or this, that, and the other thing. And then I also recorded with monitors on Graveside, which was different. In the past, you know, you got to wear the headphones and everything, and it's just, that's not how I perform live. So I think all those factors sort of added up to take away from the like the upfrontness of a good vocal performance on a record. And we really wanted to emphasize that on this album. And I got more brutal with the vocals. And I really like the recording process a lot better. I think they just sound better. They sound closer to you. They sound like you can hear my breath on your neck, you know, and that's what we want. That's what we're after, even if it's not right, you know.
It's right for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every album paints, at least I feel this way, every album paints a snapshot of where the band is at that specific time when the album is created. So like if you go back in time and you listen to one of your older records, you can almost remember exactly where you were mentally and physically when that album came together. A few years down the line, when you get to look back at this album, what picture does this record going to paint?
I think it'll be contrast. You know, the record is extremely stark. It's very bleak, but it's also probably one of our best ones. So it's kind of weird. And we were also like in a very kind of hopeless moment. You know, the band was really just in free fall for a year and a half. You know, we weren't making any money, and we all live off the band. So that was a challenge to deal with. And I don't know. I just think it kind of captures the good and the bad. Like, we got the great performances. I think we got great songs. But then we all kind of had to eat shit to get that. So I guess that's how it goes, you know.
I have one last question for you, and this is an HR related question. So I know you guys are working with my good friend Bradley, former host at Banger TV. So it looks like your hiring what do you call it, bar is very low. So does that mean that I have a chance of working for you guys as the merch dude when you guys come to Toronto?
You know, we'll see. That's funny that you know, Brad. Yeah, so I mean, we don't have a manager. You know, we're a self-managed band. We fired our manager back in 2017, and so that means it falls all on our shoulders. You know, and hiring someone like Brad, that really helps us like focus on the record rather than what's the social media schedule for the third week of August. You know, it's like, okay, that's all cool, but we got to get this record done. And so he's been really great about that. And also we really wanted to shift our focus to streaming. Just no one is buying anything physical anymore. Or not, I mean, they are, but not nearly to the degree which they did even on World War X or Slow Death. We've really seen the physical just basically go away. And so, you know, streaming is what we have to do to be competitive. And our streaming was really pretty poor. You know, we were so focused on touring and so focused on selling physical product that we really were kind of like, you know, screw streaming. It's not an income revenue. You don't make any money from it. And then now getting where we're at now, it's like you don't make any money from it, but the industry is not astute. They're very simple. And right now, the only game in town is what's your Spotify monthly. So, you know, now we got to shore that up. Otherwise, yeah, no opportunities because you're not big, you know?
Yeah, it closes out other doors for you guys.
Yeah, so it's kind of a bummer that the entire biz is focused on something that doesn't make money. I mean, I think the labels are making money because they're selling their entire catalog of content to them. So when you have, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of titles and tens of thousands of hours, it'll add up. But if you're just one band, it doesn't add up to shit. So we could stream a song a million times. There's no money there. That's why we never cared. We just sort of were like, well, let's just go where business is good. But that all changed with the shutdown, and all people care about now is your streaming. That's it.
Well, on that note, I guess I'm going to send my resume to Brad. Maybe he'll pull in some things and get me to work the merch stand. I'll work for nearly free. You buy me a cheeseburger, I'll be happy.
Free shirt.
Scott, thank you very much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with the release of the album and the tours. I know you guys are on 2 different tours. So best of luck with everything that you guys have on your plate. You guys deserve it. Crazy record, Graveside Confessions, out September 3rd on Nuclear Blast.
Hell yeah, man. I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Thank you.